The ancient forest known as the Shadow Woods stood as a silent, watchful giant on the edge of a world that had mostly forgotten it. Its trees were so tall they seemed to scratch the belly of the sky, and its depths were so dark that sunlight fell to the ground in broken pieces. The people in the nearby village of Oakhaven spoke of the woods in hushed tones, telling stories of strange noises on the wind and eyes that glowed in the moonlight. They were stories meant to keep children from straying too far, but for one person, the woods were not a place of fear, but of quiet understanding. Her name was Juniper, and she lived in a small, cozy cottage right where the neat, orderly fields of the village met the wild, tangled edge of the forest. The villagers thought Juniper was odd. She kept to herself, rarely came to town festivals, and was always seen heading into the woods with a woven basket over her arm. They didn't know her secret, the reason she preferred the company of trees to the company of people. Juniper could see things others could not. She saw the world not just as shapes and colors, but as a swirling, living painting of light. Every living thing had an aura, a shimmering halo of color that told her its true story. A grumpy badger digging for roots had a spiky, rust-colored aura of frustration. A sleepy owl in a high branch was wrapped in a soft, indigo blanket of calm. She could look at a person and know if they were lying by the flicker of ugly gray spots in their light, or if they were secretly sad, their bright colors dimmed by a film of sorrowful blue. It was this gift that made people uncomfortable, though they never knew why. They just felt that Juniper saw too much, and so they left her alone. Juniper didn't mind the solitude. In her cottage, surrounded by drying herbs and the gentle hum of the forest's auras, she was at peace. But sometimes, late at night when the wind howled a particular tune, she would feel a deep, aching loneliness, a wish for someone who wouldn't be frightened by the truth of what she was. Deep, deep within the Shadow Woods, where the trees grew so close together they blocked out the sun, was a place no human had ever seen. It was a hidden village of elegant structures built into the living rock and ancient trees, a place called Silverhold. Here lived the Nightfang Pack, a tribe of werewolves who had guarded the forest for centuries. And ruling over them all was a young king named Corbin. He was tall and strong, with eyes the color of storm clouds and a presence that commanded respect. In his wolf form, he was a magnificent creature, a beast of midnight black fur and powerful muscle, larger than any other wolf in the pack. But Corbin carried a heavy weight on his shoulders, a sadness so deep it felt like a constant winter in his heart. Years ago, a power-hungry rogue named Blaze had challenged his family for the throne. In a brutal and bloody fight, Blaze had killed Corbin's parents and his older brother. Corbin had only survived because his own fledgling power had erupted in a wave of protective grief, driving Blaze into exile. But the victory felt empty. He was alone, the last of the royal bloodline, a king with no family and no queen to stand by his side. A werewolf king was supposed to be strong, to have a mate and pups to secure the future of the pack. Without a mate, his rule felt incomplete, and whispers of his weakness, carefully spread by Blaze's remaining spies, were beginning to stir like a poison in the pack's mind. His only true friend was his beta, a loyal and serious werewolf named Theron. Theron was the brother Corbin had lost, his most trusted guard and advisor. "The pack is restless, Corbin," Theron said one evening as they stood on a high cliff overlooking Silverhold. "They need to see you are strong. They need to see you have a future." Corbin sighed, the sound a low rumble. "How can I think of a future, Theron, when the past is a ghost that follows me everywhere? My wolf spirit howls for its other half, but I fear she does not exist." Meanwhile, in her cottage, Juniper was preparing for a special trip. An elderly woman in the village was sick with a fever that wouldn't break, and Juniper knew of a rare flower, the moon shadow blossom, that only grew in a secret clearing deep in the heart of the forest. Its aura was a potent, healing silver, and she was determined to find it. She knew the dangers, the stories of wolves and worse things, but the sight of the woman's flickering, weak aura filled her with a determination that overpowered her fear. She packed her basket with bread, cheese, and a flask of water, wrapped her warmest cloak around her shoulders, and stepped into the deepening twilight of the Shadow Woods. For hours she walked, the auras of the night creatures blinking around her like fireflies. She followed a feeling, a gentle pull towards the strongest concentration of silvery light she had ever sensed. She was so focused on her search that she didn't notice how the familiar sounds of the forest's edge had faded, replaced by a deeper, more primal silence. She had crossed into the territory of the Nightfang pack. Finally, she found it, the hidden clearing bathed in moonlight, where a small patch of moonshadow blossoms glowed with an ethereal pearlescent light. Her heart leaped with joy as she carefully began to harvest a few of the precious flowers. It was then that the silence was shattered. A guttural snarl ripped through the air, so full of malice it made the very air feel cold. Juniper dropped to the ground, her heart hammering against her ribs. Peering through the ferns, she saw two massive wolves facing each other in the clearing. One was the most beautiful creature she had ever seen, a huge black wolf whose aura was a stunning, swirling mix of deep royal purple sorrow and a brilliant, unyielding core of golden honor. The other was a scarred, brindle-colored beast whose aura was a sickening, bloody red streaked with the oily black of hatred. This was one of Blaze's spies, sent to test the king's strength. The fight was terrifying and swift. They moved like blurs of shadow and fury, claws tearing up the earth, fangs snapping with the sound of cracking bones. The black wolf was clearly stronger, but the brindle wolf was cunning and fought without honor, aiming for low, dirty blows. Just as the black wolf seemed to gain the upper hand, the brindle wolf twisted and raked his poisoned claws across the black wolf's shoulder. A yelp of pain, more shock than fear, echoed through the trees. With a final, furious roar, the black wolf lunged and sank his teeth into the other's scruff, throwing him violently into the trees. The brindle wolf whimpered and fled, disappearing into the darkness. The great black wolf stood panting for a moment, then stumbled. The poison from the wound was fast-acting. His legs buckled and he collapsed onto the moss. As he lay there, a strange, shimmering light enveloped his body. There was a soft, groaning sound, and where the massive wolf had been, now lay a man. He was unconscious, his skin pale, his dark hair stuck to his forehead with sweat. The ugly, weeping wound on his shoulder was already turning a nasty shade of purple. Juniper's fear was a live thing in her chest, screaming at her to run, to get as far away as possible. But she couldn't. She looked at the man, at his aura. The purple sadness was still there, and the golden honor was now blazing brightly, a testament to his brave fight. She saw no red anger, no black hatred in him. She saw a good person, hurt and alone. Her healer's heart took over. She rushed from her hiding place, kneeling beside him. She tore a strip of cloth from her petticoat and used water from her flask to clean the vicious wound. She then crushed the precious moonshadow blossoms she had just picked, creating a poultice that glowed with soft, healing light, and pressed it gently against the poison. As her fingers made contact with his skin, something incredible happened. A jolt, like a warm spark of lightning, passed from her hand into his body and back again. It wasn't painful. It was the opposite. It was a feeling of warmth, of rightness, like a key turning in a lock she never knew existed inside her. A soft sigh escaped the man's lips, and for the first time since the death of his family, the lines of grief and tension on Corbin's face smoothed away, replaced by an expression of profound peace. Juniper felt it too, a strange, comforting heat settling deep in her chest, a feeling of having found something she didn't even know she was searching for. The night was cold, the forest was dangerous, but in that moment, holding her hand against the wounded king's skin, Juniper felt, for the first time in her life, like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Chapter 2. Secrets in the Sunlight. The first thing Corbin became aware of was not the lingering ache in his shoulder, but a scent. It was a wildflower fragrance, clean and sweet, cutting through the familiar musky smell of his own home. It was the scent of the human girl from the woods. His eyes flew open, instincts screaming of danger, of being vulnerable in a strange place. He was lying on a soft, narrow bed, tucked under a thick quilt. The room was small, filled with the gentle light of a morning sun filtering through a single window. Drying herbs hung in bundles from the low ceiling, and the air was thick with the smell of pine, earth, and something else. Something calming. His wolf, which should have been snarling and pacing within him, was instead quiet, watchful, and content. This was wrong. This was confusing. He tried to sit up, a sharp pain lancing through his shoulder reminding him of the fight, the poison, the betrayal. His movement rustled the bedclothes, and a moment later, the door to the small room creaked open. The girl stood there, her frame silhouetted in the doorway. She held a wooden bowl steaming with a savory broth. Her eyes, a warm shade of hazel, were wide with a mixture of caution and concern. "You're awake," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Don't try to move too much." The poison was strong. Corbin's mind raced. She had seen him. She had seen him change. She knew what he was. Panic, cold and sharp, clawed at his throat. He had to protect the pack, protect their secret. "Who are you?" he demanded. His voice a gravelly rasp from disuse and pain. "Where am I?" He decided then to lie, to build a wall between his truth and her humanity. "My name is Sir," he said, the false name feeling like ash on his tongue. "I was hiking. I got lost, attacked by some kind of wild animal." He watched her face carefully for any sign of disbelief, any flicker of fear. Juniper simply nodded, placing the bowl on a small table next to the bed. "I'm Juniper. You're in my home at the edge of the Shadow Woods. It was a wolf that attacked you, a very large one." She didn't flinch as she said it. She met his gaze directly, and for a fleeting second, Corbin felt the strange sensation that she was looking not just at him, but into him. He saw no fear in her eyes, only a deep, unsettling perception. She changed his bandage with efficient, gentle hands, her touch causing that same strange warm spark he remembered from the forest. His wolf rumbled, not in warning, but in approval, a low, pleased sound deep in his chest that he had to force down. It was bewildering. Days melted into one another, marked by the sun's journey across the sky and the slow, steady mending of Corbin's body. He stayed in the small cottage, telling himself it was because he was still weak, because he needed to ensure this human would keep their secret. But the truth, which he was reluctant to even admit to himself, was that he was fascinated by her. Juniper was unlike anyone he had ever known. She moved through her small world with a quiet grace, talking to the plants in her garden as if they could understand her, always knowing which herb would soothe a stomachache or which poultice would draw out infection. She was unafraid of the woods he called home, respecting its dangers but never cowering from them. They began to talk. At first, their conversations were simple and careful, two strangers circling each other. He told her fabricated stories about being a traveler from a distant town. She told him about the villagers of Oakhaven, about her life of quiet solitude. But soon the walls began to crumble. He found himself telling her real things, truths wrapped in the guise of his fictional life. He spoke of feeling the weight of responsibility, of the loneliness that came with leadership, of losing his family and the hollow space it left inside him. He never mentioned werewolves or kings, but he spoke his heart, and she listened, her intelligent eyes never leaving his face. One afternoon, as they sat on a fallen log near the edge of the clearing, watching birds flit through the trees, Corbin felt a peace so profound it was almost painful. The constant, gnawing ache of his crown, the pressure of his duties, the grief for his family, it all faded into a dull background hum when he was with her. He watched Juniper point out a bird with a bright red chest, her face alight with simple joy, and he knew, with a certainty that shook him to his core, that he never wanted to leave this place, this feeling. His wolf, which had been a restless, grieving creature for years, was now calm, settled, lying down within his soul as if it had finally found its den. This was more than fascination. This was the bond his parents had spoken of, the one he had given up hope of ever finding. This human girl, with her strange knowledge and her fearless heart, was his mate. The peace was shattered one evening by a low, warning howl that echoed from deep within the woods, a sound no human ear would recognize as anything but the wind. But Corbin knew it instantly. It was Theron. The call was laced with urgency and fear. His beta had found him. Corbin's head snapped up from the table where he and Juniper were sharing a simple meal of stew. "I have to go," he said, his voice tight. "Just for a moment. Stay inside." Before Juniper could respond, he was out the door, moving with a fluid speed that betrayed his true nature. Juniper, however, did not stay inside. A cold dread had settled in her stomach at the look on Corbin's face. She crept to the door, cracking it open just enough to see and hear. Outside, in the twilight, stood another man. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with a fierce, handsome face and an aura of swirling protective gray and stern orange. He was gripping Corbin's arm, his voice a harsh, angry whisper that carried on the still air. "A human, Corbin. Have you lost your mind? The pack is in an uproar. Blaze's followers are gathering, and you are here, playing house with a creature who could expose us all." "I am not playing, Theron." Corbin's voice was low but firm, a king's voice. "She is different. She saved my life. She knows I was hurt, she doesn't know what I am." It was a flimsy lie, and they both knew it. "Don't be a fool," Theron shot back, his voice rising. "She is a liability. Your duty is to your pack, not to some forest witch who lives alone in the woods. You must come back now, and we must deal with this situation." The way he said "deal with" sent a shiver of pure ice down Juniper's spine. She knew what that tone meant. It was the tone of someone making a difficult, final decision. She stepped back from the door, her heart pounding, the pieces clicking into place in her mind. Pack, Blaze, a liability. He wasn't just a werewolf. He was their leader. And his friend saw her as a problem to be solved. The warmth she had felt with Corbin was suddenly smothered by a blanket of cold fear. But beneath the fear, a spark of defiance ignited. She would not be a problem. She would not be a secret he had to hide. She walked back to the center of the room, her hands clenched at her sides, waiting. When Corbin came back inside, his face was a mask of conflicted emotions. "Juniper, he began, but she cut him off. "Your name isn't Seer, is it?" she asked, her voice surprisingly steady. He froze, his stormy eyes widening. She took a step closer. "And that man out there, Theron, he's not just your friend. He's your beta. And you're their king." She saw the shock and then the dawning horror on his face as he realized she knew everything. He opened his mouth, probably to deny it, to weave another lie to protect her, to protect them. But Juniper was tired of lies. She pointed to a pot of basil growing on the windowsill. "That plant," she said, "its aura is a vibrant, happy green. It's healthy and content." She then turned and pointed a finger directly at his chest. "And your aura is the most complicated I have ever seen. It's a deep, sad purple from a loss I can't even imagine, but at its very center, it's a brilliant, loyal golden yellow. And right now that gold is dimmed because you're scared. You're scared of me." The silence in the cottage was absolute. Corbin stared at her, his kingly composure completely shattered. No one had ever seen him so clearly, so completely. She had stripped away every layer, every defense, and seen the truth of him. The grief, the honor, the fear. The secret of his species was one thing, but this felt far more intimate, far more exposing. He was laid bare before her. He sank slowly into a chair, the fight gone out of him. "How?" was all he could whisper. "It's my secret," Juniper said softly, sitting opposite him. "I see the light in all living things. I've always been able to. It's why people think I'm strange. It's why I live out here alone." She was giving him her truth, offering it to him as he had, in pieces, offered his. "I knew you were a good person the moment I saw you in the forest. I saw the honor in your light. I didn't need to know you were a king to see that." Corbin looked at her, truly looked at her, not as a human or a secret to be kept, but as Juniper. The brave, kind, impossibly perceptive woman who had saved him, cared for him, and saw the man beneath the crown and the fur. The warm feeling in his chest, the one that had been growing since he woke up here, swelled until it was overwhelming. The bond, the mate bond, was now a solid, undeniable presence, a golden thread connecting his soul to hers. He reached across the small table, his large, calloused hand covering her smaller one. The electric spark was there, but now it was a comfortable warmth, a homecoming. "Juniper," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "What you see? This golden light you speak of. It's for you. It has been since the moment I woke up and smelled wildflowers." He took a deep breath, his stormy eyes holding hers. "My people have a word for a destined partner, a soul that is made to be with yours. We call them a mate. It is a bond deeper than any other. And I believe, no, I know, that you are mine." The words hung in the air between them, profound and terrifying and wonderful. Juniper felt the truth of them resonate in that warm, anchored place in her chest. It wasn't a question. It was a fact, as real as the ground beneath her feet. She didn't say anything. She simply stood, pulling her hand from his only to come around the table, and she leaned down, her eyes never leaving his, and pressed her lips to his. It was not a kiss of fiery passion, but something far more powerful. It was a kiss of promise, of acceptance, of a future suddenly and brilliantly unveiled. It was soft and lingering, a silent vow passing between them. As their lips met, the final piece of the bond clicked into place. The warmth in their chests blossomed, spreading through their entire bodies, a permanent gentle heat that whispered of belonging, of home, of a love that was written in the stars long before they were born. The king and the girl who saw sparks were no longer two lonely souls, but one, their secrets now a shared strength in the gathering darkness. Chapter 3. A crown of claws and courage. The fragile peace of Juniper's cottage was shattered by a sound that tore through the forest like a physical blow. It was not a single howl, but a chorus of them, rising from the depths of the shadow woods, a symphony of fury, challenge, and impending violence. Corbin was on his feet in an instant, the gentle lover replaced by the warrior king. His body tensed, his head cocked as he listened, translating the savage music. His face, which had been soft with the wonder of their new bond, hardened into a mask of grim resolve. "Blaze," he said, the name a curse. "He's here. He's challenging me now, while he believes I'm weak and distracted." He turned to Juniper, his eyes filled with a storm of conflict. "You must stay here. Lock the door. No matter what you hear, do not come out." But Juniper stood her ground, her chin held high. The warm, anchoring feeling of the mate bond in her chest was now a thrumming chord of strength, banishing the last of her fear. "No," she said, her voice quiet but unwavering. "He called me a liability. He said I made you weak. I will not hide in the dark like a secret. I'm your mate. Where you go, I go." Corbin saw the fierce determination in her hazel eyes, felt it through the bond, a solid, unshakable rock in the raging river of his anxiety. He knew arguing was futile. With a curt, reluctant nod, he took her hand. "Stay close to me. And stay close to Theron. He will protect you with his life, I command it." They moved through the woods not as a human and a werewolf, but as a single unit. Corbin led the way, his movements silent and predatory, while Juniper matched his pace, her unique vision allowing her to see the safest path through the tangled undergrowth. The auras of the forest around them were a chaotic mess of frightened greens and aggressive reds as animals fled the coming storm. They soon reached the outskirts of Silverhold. The hidden village was no longer a place of quiet majesty but an armed camp. Werewolves in both human and wolf form were gathered in the central clearing, their faces etched with fear and anticipation. Theron stood at the front, his stern orange aura blazing with readiness. When he saw Corbin, relief washed over his face, but when he saw Juniper following close behind, his expression tightened with disapproval. "My king, you should not have brought her here. This is no place for a human." Before Corbin could reply, a figure stepped out from the opposing side of the clearing. It was Blaze. He was taller than Corbin, his body a latticework of old scars, and his eyes held a cruel, hungry light. His aura was a vision of nightmare, a vortex of violent crimson and a deep, corrupting black that seemed to suck the light from the very air around him. "Corbin!" he bellowed, his voice echoing off the stone. "You come before your pack trailing the stink of a human. Is this your great strength? To find a pet while your people await a true leader?" His followers, a motley crew of rogues and discontents, snarled and snapped their jaws in agreement. Laughter, harsh and mocking, rippled through their ranks. Corbin stepped forward, his presence expanding to fill the space. "I come before my pack as their king, Blaze. Something you will never be. This woman is Juniper. She is my fated mate, recognized by the ancient bond." A shocked murmur ran through the Nightfang pack. The mate bond was sacred, but a human mate was unheard of. Blaze saw their doubt and seized upon it. "A human mate," he sneered. "A lie. A pathetic excuse for your weakness. A true king draws strength from a wolf-blooded mate, not a fragile creature who will break with a single snap of my jaws. She is your greatest vulnerability, and I will enjoy carving her open to prove it." The challenge was made. With a roar that was more beast than man, Blaze shifted. His transformation was a brutal, painful-looking spectacle of cracking bones and tearing muscle, and when it was complete, a monstrous, brindle-furred wolf stood where the man had been, larger and more heavily built than Corbin's noble form. Corbin did not hesitate. He met the change, his own shift a fluid, powerful surge of energy until the magnificent black wolf stood facing his enemy. The fight began. It was a whirlwind of teeth and claws, a brutal dance of power and hatred. They moved faster than the human eye could follow, a blur of black and brindle. Corbin was faster, more agile, his movements precise. But Blaze was a brawler, all brute force and dirty tactics. He fought to maim, to cripple, not to win honorably. He threw dirt in Corbin's eyes, feinted attacks only to go for his legs, and used his greater weight to try and crush him. Juniper watched, her heart in her throat, her knuckles white as she gripped Theron's arm. She could see their auras clashing, Corbin's brilliant gold flaring each time he landed a blow, Blaze's oily black spilling out like poison with every snarl. Blaze, panting and bleeding, changed his tactic. He let out a sharp bark, and two of his rogues broke from the crowd, lunging not at Corbin, but directly at Juniper. Theron moved like lightning, intercepting one with a snarl that promised death. But the second was almost upon her. Without thinking, Juniper did the only thing she could. She focused on the rogue's aura, a muddy, hateful brown. She didn't know how she did it, but she pushed. She pushed a feeling, a single powerful thought directly into the core of its light, a feeling of absolute, paralyzing terror. The wolf skidded to a halt, whining in confusion, its eyes wide with a fear it didn't understand, and turned tail to flee. The distraction, however brief, was all Blaze needed. While Corbin was momentarily concerned for Juniper, Blaze lunged, his powerful jaws clamping down on Corbin's previously wounded shoulder. Corbin howled in agony as the poisoned wound was torn open. Blaze threw him to the ground, placing a heavy, crushing paw on his chest, his hot, foul breath washing over Corbin's face. "The mighty king," Blaze growled, his voice a guttural parody of speech, brought down by concern for a human. "It ends now." He reared his head back, jaws opening wide for the killing bite to the throat. A scream was trapped in Juniper's lungs. She saw Corbin's golden aura flicker, dimming under the onslaught of Blaze's suffocating darkness. She couldn't fight with tooth and claw, but she could fight with light. Ignoring everything else, she focused every ounce of her being, every bit of her love for Corbin, every spark of her courage, on Blaze's corrupted aura. She didn't push a feeling of fear this time. She pushed something far more disruptive to his hatred, doubt. She pushed the image of his own pack turning from him, the feeling of being utterly and completely alone, the chilling realization that even victory would be a hollow, loveless reign. She pushed the very essence of the loneliness that had once plagued Corbin. showing Blaze the empty throne that awaited him. For just a second Blaze froze. His triumphant snarl died in his throat. A flicker of confusion, of unexpected and unwelcome uncertainty, crossed his savage features. His crushing weight on Corbin's chest eased by a fraction. It was the single, fleeting moment Corbin needed. With a final explosive surge of strength fueled by the love he felt through the bond, he twisted his body, freeing his hind legs. He raked his powerful claws across Blaze's exposed belly. Blaze howled, a sound of pure shock and pain, stumbling backward. Corbin was on him in an instant, no longer the defensive fighter, but the avenging king. He slammed Blaze to the ground, his own jaws finding their mark on the rogue's throat. He did not bite down to kill, but to hold, to dominate. A low, thunderous growl erupted from Corbin, a sound of absolute, unquestionable authority that silenced the entire clearing. Blaze went limp beneath him, yielding. It was over. The rogue wolves, seeing their leader defeated, scattered into the forest. The Nightfang pack erupted in a unified, triumphant howl that shook the very trees. Theron was the first to approach. He looked from Corbin, who was shifting back to his human form, clutching his bleeding shoulder, to Juniper, who stood trembling but unbroken. The stern orange of his aura softened, blending with a new, deep shade of respect and loyalty. He bowed his head, first to his king, and then meaningfully to Juniper. "My queen," he said, the words filled with a newfound reverence. The rest of the pack followed his lead, a wave of bows and acknowledging rumbles moving through the crowd. They had not just seen their king win a fight. They had seen the human woman stand her ground and use a strange, wonderful power to help save him. They saw not a weakness, but a unique and formidable strength. Weeks later, under the brilliant light of a full moon, the entire pack gathered in the sacred stone circle at the heart of Silverhold. Corbin, his shoulder healed, stood dressed in simple ceremonial robes of dark gray. Juniper stood beside him, not in a fine gown, but in a new, beautiful dress of forest green, woven for her by the pack's weavers. Her hair was crowned with living moonshadow blossoms that glowed softly in the moonlight. There were no grand words or elaborate rituals from a priest. Corbin simply took her hands in his voice clear and strong for all to hear. "Juniper, you who see the truth in all things, you who saw the man behind the crown and the wolf. You are my strength, my heart, and my other half. With this bond, I give you my life and my loyalty forever." Juniper's eyes shone with tears of joy as she replied, her voice carrying on the night air. "Corbin, you who showed me I was never meant to be alone. You are my home, my protector, and my love. With this bond, I give you my heart and my faith forever." As they spoke the words, the mate bond, that warm golden thread between them, flared into a visible brilliant light that enveloped them both for a breathtaking moment. The pack howled their approval, not a cry of savagery, but a song of celebration. Corbin was no longer the lonely king, and Juniper was no longer the strange girl on the edge of the woods. They were the mated pair, the king and queen of the Nightfang pack, their love a shield for their people and a legend in the making. Their story was a testament that the most powerful magic is not always in tooth and claw, but sometimes in the courage to love, and in the unique light that each soul brings to the world. Their future together was just beginning. If you were drawn into the world of Corbin and Juniper, if you felt the strength of their bond and the thrill of their victory, then you won't want to miss what comes next. Our journey through tales of unique love and breathtaking adventure is far from over. By subscribing to the channel, you ensure you never miss a single story. A simple click of the subscribe button and a tap on the notification bell is all it takes to join our pack, and it helps us more than you know, allowing us to continue creating these worlds for you. So, become a part of our community today, and we'll see you in the next story.